let me introduce our first speaker, Andrei Christofides, who is the Executive Manager of the Home for Cooperation, which is an organization dedicated to facilitating and offering a space for initiatives that contribute to promoting communication and interaction between people from different ethnic, religious, or linguistic backgrounds at a local, regional, European, and international level. Andrei's responsibilities include overseeing and coordinating all operations and projects of the Home for Cooperation, as well as developing plans and strategies. Andrei holds an MS in Social and Cultural Anthropology from KU Leuven, Belgium, and a BA in English Literature from the University of Surrey in the UK. He previously volunteered at NGOs in both Sydney and Nicosia, and was an intern at the Association for Historical Dialogue and Research before joining the Home for Cooperation team. Welcome, Andrei.
Great, thank you so much. So it's a pleasure to be part of the conference, and thank you very much for the invitation. I'm going to start my presentation, and I would like to share my screen, if that's okay. And let me know if everything works.
It looks good.
Great, so thank you very much. I'll just go on full screen. I'm going to start sharing a bit more about the Home for Cooperation, and I know that my colleagues later on, especially Mario Epaminondas, will be contextualizing a bit more the Home for Cooperation in Nicosia and where we are situated, but I'll try and do a brief introduction as well in my own presentation. So I am the executive manager of the Home for Cooperation, and it's always nice to start explaining what the home is and what it does by talking a bit about the history of the home. The home is situated in the UN controlled buffer zone in Nicosia, in the middle of the dividing lines. The situation in Cyprus and in Nicosia will be contextualized a bit better later on, so I'm going to move and focus mostly on what the Home for Cooperation does as a community center, just to give you a bit of context before I introduce our projects and our programs and our input into this urban diplomacy field. So the building where the Home for Cooperation is located was owned by an Armenian Cypriot family, the Magoyans, who were photographers. The building was caught in between. Its existence kind of was caught in between the dividing lines when the first intercommunal clashes started between the different communities on the island in the 1950s and 1960s. So since then, and up until the 2000s, when the Association for Historical Dialogue and Research was formed, the building was then purchased with the aim of opening a research center. The association, and AHDR, is an association that Marius will be presenting following my own presentation. So what you need to know for now is that it's the parent organization that established the home. The home opened in 2011 as a research center, and it has organically grown into a community center with operating with its own team, and the aims of the Home for Cooperation itself as a cultural space now are to facilitate and offer a space for initiatives, whether that's formal groups, non-formal groups, academics, diplomatic community, even students who want to use our space and come here and implement their own activities to promote communication and interaction between people from across the divide. It aims also to inspire and promote creativity among local and international artists, because we do work on culture and arts, and I will share a bit more about that later. It aims to become a platform for cultural expression and exchange, and it aims to actually practically support cultural and educational activities that promote interaction, dialogue, and freedom of thinking and expression. So how does it do that? There are two levels when we are discussing what the home is and what it does. One focuses on the physical presence of the home. As I mentioned briefly, it exists, it operates from the buffer zone of Nicosia, and that holds a very unique characteristic. The current situation in Cyprus, and especially in Nicosia, the capital, is that there is a division, there are certain crossing points through which people can cross from the north to the south. The Greek Cypriot community is segregated in the south, whereas the Turkish Cypriot community is segregated in the north. The home exists in one such crossing where access from one side to the other is permitted. So it renders it also accessible by people who don't have the capacity to cross due to citizenship status or other more kind of legal and bureaucratic reasons. As such, the home in the buffer zone has become a hub, a space open to all communities across the divide and groups within the biggest communities I already mentioned. It has some rental rooms, spaces that other people can come and host their work. It has a home cafe, which becomes a first safe space for interaction, for people to engage. And also, it also becomes the home for many other organizations that have their offices in the home for cooperation building. And then there is another layer to our work, which is our active presence in peace building. The home works through culture and arts, and it focuses on a strategic arts-based peace building. This means that the home team actively tries to create opportunities for people to meet, interact, and kind of build on collaborations and projects together with the aim to foster new experiences, connections, and kind of bridge the gap that exists and is perpetuated in many, many different ways. So when I have to kind of reflect on the challenges of our work, there's a lot of things that come into play. Obviously, as an NGO in the buffer zone, there are the typical issues of funding and sustainability, but I'm not going to bore you with that. I'm going to focus on a few more that may be more specific to the situation of the home. As you'll see, the first one is quite clear, is the shifting political priorities. We are operating from the buffer zone, so the presence of the home in the buffer zone is very much political, even though we don't affiliate with specific parties or have any role in that way. The civilian presence in this military area that we call the buffer zone is very much political in itself. So there come times when the political priorities shift away from this peace building element or the intercommunal efforts, which makes our lives a bit more difficult. Just one example would be during the COVID-19 pandemic, one of the first measures that was imposed by the Republic of Cyprus, which was to close the crossings between the two parts of the island. That was before any sort of measures or restrictions were placed to arrivals by air or sea. So there was a very clear shift in the priorities at that time. Another challenge that we're facing is the role. I wrote traditional media role just to kind of give an introduction into that, because although it's a very, very big chapter and it's a bit difficult to kind of touch upon it, and I'm very mindful of the time. I have my timer next to me. It's very difficult to reach out to mainstream media, promote our work, have expand our audience, and the reasons are, again, political. Traditional media has traditionally adopted a very specific narrative when it comes to peace building. It's often an afterthought, or it can be too sensitive or not political enough. So it's a challenge we have in reaching out beyond what we call the bubble of civil society and peace building, especially in Nicosia. Another challenge that we're facing, and it's something that we have collectively begun discussing as civil society organizations in Nicosia, is the lack of presence of NGOs in decision-making processes, in consultations from the local authorities when it comes to any decision-making that affects our field of work or the life of people in the city. And the last part might be a bit complicated and difficult to explain, but I'm going to try and just introduce it as a concept, because what has been mentioned in research recently by Socrates studies and other academics is the term of comfort conflict, although it may be a bit I don't want to say paradox. It speaks to the situation in Cyprus, which remains a non-violent conflict. Nevertheless, we cannot claim to exist in a peaceful environment, because when you're walking down the street in Nicosia, you will see barbed wire, you will see the crossings, the checkpoints, and I don't want to spoil any of the information you will receive later on from the rest of the speakers, but there is a conflict. It's not a physically and actively violent conflict, but it's a constant reminder. And the fact that we've moved beyond the frozen, protracted conflict, as it's usually seen, into what we identify as comfort, means that it's very difficult to engage with people beyond the usual suspects, as we say, the bubble of people who support peace building, people who are aware of the intercommunal nature of our work. So again, I think all these challenges feed into each other, and everything is interconnected in that sense. But more to the positive stuff, beyond the challenges. I wanted to kind of share with you a few ways in which we find our work has become quite successful, and how we think our work becomes relevant and meaningful. And that is mostly through collaborations. We say co-creation when we mean learning with each other, not from each other. What we're trying to focus on through our programs is a collaborative element, which means sharing input, sharing experience, and then kind of creating things together, whether that is on the basis of a specific event or a whole festival. And I'm just going to give very quickly a couple of examples. On the left of the photo, you'll see of the screen, you'll see the Island Seeds Band, which is an intercommunal band that was created under one of our projects called United by Sound. The band has already released a single last June, and they're ready to debut their first album. And this is a very good example of an impactful collaboration, because we have these 6, 7 at times band members who have been producing music together. So it has moved beyond the instance of an event, a performance they gave together, but into the co-creation, into a deeper commitment, which has kind of had a more kind of sustainable impact, at least in that sense. The middle photo is from the Buffer Fringe Performing Arts Festival, the 10th edition we've had a couple of weeks ago. And it's just for me a glimpse to share that, for example, in the Buffer Fringe Festival, what we have been doing is we've been encouraging collaboration between artists from across the divide, from local and international collaborations. Firstly, on the level of the artists and when they are presenting their own performances to the festival, but also most recently, we've taken the collaborative aspect in the organizational level of the festival, because we believe that through synergies, through partnerships, through collaborations, the work becomes more meaningful and more powerful, and definitely more sustainable as well. And just a few examples of breakthroughs, as I've called them, examples of where we've seen our work being in the more public sphere. And one of the ways we've finally started to be able to work with local authorities and municipalities is through these projects. I've given very brief examples that I'm just going to go through them very quickly, because I'm very mindful of the time and I want to respect the remaining speakers as well. So one of the breakthroughs we've had recently is the fact that the island is banned that I presented previously. And on the right, you'll see there are two releases, The Time is Ripe and The Stray Cat. If you've been to Cyprus, you'll know why the Stray Cat has been an inspiration for their album. But they have been invited and accepted to perform in the Nicosia International Festival, which is organized by the municipality of Nicosia. And in a 4-month program with many, many performances, the only presence of a Turkish Cypriot artist is through our own program. And we believe that has allowed for some sort of shift. Also, the city of Nicosia has received recognition by the Lonely Planet magazine, if you're aware. It's included Nicosia as one of the top 10 cities to travel for 2022 under the community category, precisely for this music project and the work that they are doing. I'm not going to go through the next two, but I'm very happy to answer any questions and share more later on because I am just out of time. And with that, I want to thank you very, very much for your attention.
Andre, thank you so very much for that wonderful presentation that helps us start to frame the city that you are broadcasting from. And so thank you very much. And at this point, let us turn now to another of our city diplomat, our urban diplomats from Nicosia, Marios Epaminondas. Marios is among the founding members of the Association for Historical Dialogue and Research in Nicosia. The AHDR is a multi-communal, not-for-profit, non-governmental organization which works to maintain a continuous open dialogue about enhanced pedagogic practices that could encourage the values of the discipline of history. Marios has studied pedagogics, history, art history, and educational leadership, and has worked as a teacher, museum animator, history textbook author, teacher trainer, and education policy expert. Marios has been active in civil society organizations on a local and international level since the mid-1990s, and has been a coordinator and trainer facilitator in several projects with themes related to history education, human rights education, intercultural learning, and citizenship. Since 2010, he has developed an activity known as the Nicosia Walk, which he describes as a city anti-tour, aiming to help participants enhance their understanding of the Cypriot capital city through a multi-perspective approach. Marios, welcome to our conference. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, David. Hello, everybody. I'm happy and honored to be here. Actually, I'm honored to be part of this prestigious conference and also happy to be sharing the panel with good friends and collaborators, Andre and Mete. I hope our presentation will be meaningful and helpful for all the participants. Now, my big challenge is to share my screen. I will try to do that. So, seems to be working.
It does indeed.
That's nice. I call this presentation Nicosia, Memory, Dignity, Diversity, and I will reveal the reason at the end of my presentation. So this keeps some kind of, let's say, anticipation. I'm going to use some strategy from contemporary film industry, and I will do some kind of a prequel for what Andre said. So I will give some kind of historical background leading to the current division and the need for the existence of initiatives like the ones we described today. So my presentation will have 4, let's say, chapters. I'm kind of old school in this. I will give a few information about the context of Cyprus, a few words about the work of our association. I will highlight this particular activity called Nicosia Walk, and then some kind of initiation for discussion. Now, I will invite you to see this map. I suppose you can recognize that this is the Mediterranean Sea. I will invite you to look eastwards. You see this big island. I mean, you can see Italy, Greece, Turkey, and then south of Turkey is Cyprus. This is the, let's say, the theater of our work. And now we're becoming a bit more political. Sometimes maps are a bit elusive. You cannot classify people with colors, but this comparison gives some kind of indication that on this island of Cyprus, there are two main ethnic political communities historical. In the 1960s, when the Republic of Cyprus was established after some years of colonization, we have some kind of, I mean, these populations were spread all over the island. There was, I mean, these communities could identify with their peers, but also there was a lot of mixture. And then following the independence of Republic of Cyprus, we have some kind of troubled years. We experience intercommunal conflict, foreign intervention, which led to forced displacement. And eventually what we have today is we have the population segregated along ethnic lines. So in the north, we have Turkish Cypriot, in the south, Greek Cypriots. We also have different kinds of authorities. In the south, we have the Republic of Cyprus exercising control. In the north, there is a Turkish Cypriot administration, unilaterally declared a republic, which is not recognized. It's only recognized by Turkey. And in the middle of these two territories, we have the buffer zone, which is patrolled by the UN. Now, in the center of the island, we also have the capital city of Nicosia, which, interestingly enough, is also divided. And this is a satellite view of Nicosia, a very interesting phenomenon. Something is like the trademark of Nicosia is the walls of the old city. You can see them having this round shape with bastions. Around in the middle of the city, you can see that nature is taking over. You can see more trees. This is the green line or the buffer zone. It's the place where, I mean, you can find the barricades nowadays. For many years, this line was impermeable for civilians. And actually in 2003, we had the first chance to cross across, I mean, my generation had the first chance to cross across the divide. And it was revealing for people who are encountering people from the other community. Now, again, now we're becoming a bit more political. This is the way the city will be portrayed across the current divide by maps produced by obviously different authorities. The one on the left-hand side, you can see that the northern part is highlighted, southern part is empty. Obviously, is produced by Turkish Cypriot authorities. The other one is the southern part is highlighted, and you can see this small line saying that the north is under Turkish occupation since 1974. This is a Greek Cypriot perspective of the city. But if you grow up with this kind of maps, you get certain messages, and you have some explicit and implicit messages passed to the people about the nature of the city. Is it one city or two cities? What is the aspiration of the people of the city? Is it to unify or to stay segregated? And what are the possibilities of interaction and cooperation? Now, the framework is not constituted only by maps, but also by the rhetoric, the everyday rhetoric. There are some hegemonic, let's say, voices, and their messages are giving some kind of meanings that are embraced by many people. And this, although communities might have different narratives, there are commonalities in the way they portray certain things. So communities are considered to be perennial and undifferentiated. So you have, let's say, a block that is Turkish Cypriots and block that is Greek Cypriots. Usually the voice of the community is the voice of the dominant group. So you might hear people saying, this is what the Turkish Cypriots do, or this is what the Greek Cypriots do. And actually they are referring to some kind of dominant group expressing somehow the community. Now, in this framework, different aspects of heritage that you can see in everyday life in the city, is considered to belong to one or the other community. And then, according to the heritage sites or the public spaces that are highlighted, you have a different level of belonging of different communities in the city according to where you stand. And this has consequences because it's allowing only certain elements of the city to be visible and worthy according to the framework that you are employing to understand the city. Diversity and hybridity is considered to be something negative and it's suppressed. Usually when you have a public discourse or a school textbook or some kind of political statements, they are usually one-sided, and there is a lot of use of this political term of blame game. So for everything that is going wrong, usually it's the other side to be blamed. Now in this framework, in this city, a group of educators, researchers, back in 2003, we established this NGO, the Association for Historical Dialogue and Research. And actually, we are not alone in this effort to promote cooperation and understanding, but we were like in a minority group that was trying to see things in a different perspective. And our aim was to promote dialogue and cooperation. We were working in a multi-communal setting with people across the divide. We tried to manage things in a cooperative approach. We tried to give equal status to the different voices in the city. And we also tried to focus on social cultural histories as contrasted to the diplomatic, political, military history, which was prevailing usually in the discussion. Now, one of the important contributions of the association was the creation of educational material, which was, we call it supplementary educational material. So teachers across the divide can use them according to their needs. So you can, these are the covers of some of the booklets, and these are representative because you can see we try to use 3 languages, Greek, Turkish, and English. So this will make sure that our work is comprehensible almost to everybody on the island. And actually, the one on the left-hand side is a particular booklet addressing the history of Nicosia. You can see this trademark. The walled city of Nicosia is portrayed in a unitary way, while at the same time recognizing the different voices that exist within the city. Now, one of the activities we do and has a very close connection to the city itself is the so-called Nicosia walk. As David said earlier, it's some kind of anti-tour because in the Nicosian context, a tour would usually adopt one or the other perspective, whereas in this particular activity, we try to produce a narrative based on multi-perspectivity. The employment, because the employment is quite interesting when you narrate something, even if it's, let's say, historical. We try to have an inclusive employment. The other important parameter is that we are involving local stakeholders. So in different kinds of activities, we have, migrants of Nicosia, people who work in a certain domain like merchants or artists. We could have, let's say, highlighting women's history. I mean, histories which are not explicitly or usually portrayed in the public discourse. And in this activity, what is quite powerful is that the earthen fabric serves as an illustration of the stories. This is quite powerful, and it's a safe space for meeting, because in these kind of activities, we have people from different backgrounds. And we're not talking only about Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, because nowadays there are several ethnic groups residing on the island. So this activity is a safe space for other and maybe pursuing common objectives later on. And the other parameter which has to be highlighted, that is engaging, it's fun. So it's something that people would like to be part of. I will give you a very small highlight of a virtual tour of Nicosia. I mean, in a couple of pictures, you see this is one of the most impressive monuments of Nicosia. Currently, is the Selimiye Mosque. It's a mosque. So it's a praying place for Muslims. It's a quite old building. When it was constructed, it was a Catholic cathedral. Yeah. So this is something very common in Nicosia. You have layers of belonging, layers of history. And if you take a perspective that includes all these layers, things are becoming, I mean, people feel that this kind of buildings have a comprehensive belonging rather than a partisan belonging. Now, this is another quite important building of Nicosia, and actually it's a school. You can see the facade resembles an ancient Greek temple. Now, if you see this in somewhere else, it could be an appreciation of classical Greece or Rome. But in the context of Cyprus, when it was created by the Greek Cypriot community to highlight the connection of the Greek Cypriots with the Greek history, and also illustrate the demand in the early 20th century for union with Greece. Now, this particular building, over the course of the years, it hosted different kinds of students. And actually in 2021, when it was the last year of this school functioning, 100% of the students had a migrant background. So this illustrates the dynamic change of demographics in the city, which has to be captured, understood, and embraced. And finally, this is a stencil on a wall. And this is also symbolically, it gives us the question that what is beautiful in the city? What do we like to have in the city? Is this kind of artistic work welcome? And actually, this is an activistic stencil. So we gather these messages, highlight them, and this is, I mean, it's a dialogue with the city and the people of the city. This is the Home for Cooperation. This is what Andriy talked about. This is a tremendous transformation of meaning, because it's located in the buffer zone, which is also known as the dead zone. And currently, this dead zone, through the functioning of the Home for Cooperation, is becoming a very lively zone, a zone for cooperation. Now, the achievements of these activities, I would say that a big achievement is that it's embraced by local and internationals. It gives a comprehensive and inclusive understanding of the city. And we say that it reclaims the dignity for more, even all the people of Nicosia. And by understanding that our past, even if it is contested, is a shared past. And this gives also the ground for transformative action. So groups can take action to make the city better, more inclusive, more welcoming. And of course, we have challenges. It's difficult to measure our impact. Steps of influence is quite slow. There are real and symbolic impediments in our work. We are contingent to political developments. And of course, we are always, as an NGO, a civil society movement, we also have this issue of securing sustainability. Now, This is my final slide. And I go back to the first one and I say, I mean, we never think of ourselves as diplomats, but maybe we are de facto. And the message we want to transmit that is that Nicosia, even if we cannot control the administration of the real boundaries of the city, we would like to see Nicosia as a place where memories are shared, even if they are contradictory or painful. Dignity is secured for everybody, and also diversity is welcome. And I leave you with these two questions, which are maybe relevant to other cities that haven't experienced conflict in the traditional sense, asking what are the limits of living together and belonging in a city nowadays, and also what is the relation between shared histories and shared cities. Thank you. Teşekkür ederim and ευχαριστώ. These are our common languages in Cyprus: Greek, Turkish, and English. Thank you very much.
Marios, thank you very much. What a wonderful way to contextualize the history of your extraordinary city. And I think that this really sets us up for a lot of wonderful questions following these presentations. And on that theme, I would like to invite our audience to consider submitting a question for our panelists through the Q&A portal at the bottom of your screen. And I will take those questions and we'll be able to pose them verbally to our panelists. So at this point in time, I would like to now introduce our third and final panelist for this roundtable, and that is Mete Hate. Mete Hate is a political analyst and is a senior research consultant at the Peace Research Institute of Oslo's Prio Cyprus Center. He has published articles in academic journals such as American Ethnologist, Journal of Modern Greek Studies, Journal of Refugee Studies, and Ethnic and Racial Studies. He is also the author of numerous reports and policy briefs, particularly on subjects such as demography, property, and cultural heritage. With Rebecca Bryant, he published Sovereignty Suspended, Building the So-Called State in 2019. He has also published 3 books in Turkish, and now I'm going to ask for forgiveness in my attempt to pronounce these properly. Among his 3 books in Turkish are Esikteki Meseleler, published by Soylem in 2019, Kibris in en Uzun Yusklu, published by Kalkedon in 2021, and Kibris Bitmeyen Yaz, published by Kalkedon in 2023. Mete, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Hi. Of course, the other friends mainly concentrated on the institutions that they were part of, and we did work together with this institution, and we are still doing a lot of nice works together. But I would more like to concentrate on the existing asymmetry in Nicosia and how sort of diplomacy can help to redress this asymmetry in a sense. So what are these asymmetries? There is an asymmetry of wealth. Nicosia is not just divided between North and South, Turkish and Greek, but it's also divided wall city, where migrants and the poor people living, and the suburbs, yes, on both sides. And then you have the asymmetry of epistemological asymmetry, in a sense that both sides, one side is more integrated with the international world, the other side is more just dependent on Turkey for its economy, for its education, for its security and all this. And it's not recognized, and it's not part of the international community. On the other hand, the Republic of Cyprus has more advantages in a sense of knowledge production, let's say, yes. On the other hand, there are other asymmetries like the populations. One side is bigger than the other one and everything. So what I've been doing, and what the institute that I'm part of from its inception is doing, is we wanted to redress the lack of information regarding Nicosia and all over the Cyprus problem as well, because during the Annan plan, the only plan which was put in front of the people back in 2004, after years of negotiations, and asked both sides to vote for a settlement of the Cyprus problem, realized that there were a lot of lack of information regarding the certain issues of the Cyprus problem. And also because Cyprus problem is almost a 50 years old conflict, according to some 60 years old conflict, and it's not it is called a frozen conflict, but it is not, because it is all these developments adding to it. Instead of Cyprus problem, we have now many Cyprus problems. We wanted to somehow redress the situation of misunderstanding emanating from the official information coming from both sides. So we want to be, in a way, creating a third zone in the information flow to deliver certain researches relevant to the Cyprus problem. For example, property issue, displacement, identity issues, migration, demography, and everything. And in order to do that, we applied for the Peace Research Institute Oslo to help us for capacity building and also funding-wise. And they agreed to open a center in Nicosia. First, we were based in the buffer zone right in front of the Home for Cooperation in this derelict hotel. Actually, we gave our office, when we left the place, we gave our office to Marius's association to use it, because there weren't much places there. So we turned it into a center where the Turkish Cypriot and Greek Cypriot researchers can work together. They can co-author articles and do research together. And it was some kind of a sort of endeavor of reaching out to both communities with this communal research and manuscripts that we produced regarding the issues that debatable. Of course, we weren't insisting that these are the realities, but at least it was the work of both sides, scholars, researchers, and journalists in some cases. The institute has turned into some kind of a hybrid institute. It is not just a research institute, it's partly a think tank and partly a dialogue institute. So we have three main pillars. One is, of course, to do a proper research by academic standards, publish our work in journals, in academic environments. The second one is to feed the diplomats, the track one diplomats, regarding the obstacles, the issues arise during processes or understanding the Cyprus problem or emerging problems regarding the current situation. So we have regular seminars, panels, information, chats, collaborations, and things like that with the diplomatic community regularly. And as I say, the first pillar is to get the research acknowledged by the academic community. And the third is to go back to the people and bring the research back to the people. And this is what we do as well through journalism, popular articles, documentaries. We do a lot of documentaries, chats, visits, and also a lot of newspaper articles. So we try to get to the people and sort of create a platform for debate over these findings that we come up with. So in a way, it's three-track diplomacy goes on at the same time in the institute. Apart from that, of course, we have a lot of dialogue activities in order to sort of enrich the research. We do a lot of interviews, we listen to the people, but we also deliver, we bring our research back to the people through different mediums. During the Annan plan, for example, we had an information project, again, two Turkish Cypriots, two Greek Cypriots got together, and there was a plan produced by the international law experts, by the UN, and we had to somehow, we didn't want to leave this plan orphan and leave it to the politicians to explain it solely. So what we did, in a way, we sat down and summarized the plan, both Greek Cypriots, Turkish Cypriots, with the help of United Nations, and we put in front of the people this summary so that they can see a common manuscript by both sides, with an easy to understand format, more sort of guide kind of format, and try to sort of explain that what they are going to be voting for, without advocating it's good or bad. So it was a very interesting exercise, and we do similar exercises now as well. But that was a very important period when, before the referenda, we went around 70 different villages, all neighborhoods in Nicosia. We had the TV programs, direct phoning questions, receiving questions from the people and trying to explain the plan and so forth. So this kind of activities we are ready to do, of course, but as our friends were explaining, it depends on the political changes and the atmosphere that we are into. For example, before 2017, there was some kind of a hopeful atmosphere, but after the last attempt, it collapsed, and now there's some kind of polarization. So nowadays, we mostly work more on managing the conflict rather than mobilization or explaining people that what kind of solution are the elite is achieving. And rightly so, as Andrew said, the participation of the civil society is quite distance from the negotiation. It's more like a comprehensive settlement process. The elite, political elite talks, and they have the principle of nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. So that means that you postpone a lot of the agreed things for the Big Bang solution. And of course, when the Big Bang solution doesn't happen, nothing is agreed eventually. So we try to break that as well, and we try to sort of question even the methodologies regarding the negotiations. And we do have a lot of seminars, conferences. We bring scholars from different parts of different cities, different parts of the world, and have these debates in Nicosia, and try to sort of bring the debates, the results, the conclusions, and the suggestions in Nicosia to the other parts of Cyprus as well, or even other countries, in a sense. So we don't just stay in Nicosia. We try to have an interaction. And during this introduction, and also with the information process that we are accelerating, we in a way, we have some kind of transformative agenda as well, by showing different sides and different parts of behind all certain things. I think we also helped for the truth and reconciliation of certain problems that they've been sort of preventing to go further in that sense. Thank you very much.
Mete, thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. I just have to say, it is such a privilege to get perspectives from the three of you speaking to us as members of constituencies on either side of the screen line. And it is so clear that your work diminishes its importance in so many ways. And so I want to first of all, call attention to the fact that anybody is more than welcome to post a question in the Q&A. I see two now, and so what I'd like to do first is to ask a question that is posed by Joan Viamonte, who is a science diplomacy researcher and a Cuban refugee in Chicago, and his questions are two. He says, is there any participation of higher education institutions, either private or public, involved as mediators to foster the intercultural negotiations and dialogue for peace, just as you are carrying out? And his second question is, is there a peace prize of sorts to stimulate the spearheading of actors to keep doing the type of work that you're engaged in? Let's begin with, let's start as we in the opposite direction, and then Mette, would you be willing to take that question? And then if anybody else would like to weigh in, either Marios or Andre, please do so.
1 second. Yes, I mean, there isn't I mean, universities are usually controlled by the state, so it's not very easy to sort of establish peace and reconciliation programs in that. But recently, I heard that the University of Cyprus is now doing an MA program. As you mentioned his name, Kostas Konstantinou was the pioneer of that. And I think with Yannis Papadakis and the other chap, I forgot his name, apologies, have been the pioneer of establishing this MA program now on conflict resolution in Cyprus. But apart from that, we have this Peace Research Institute of Oslo, which is an academic institution. We have a lot of researchers in Oslo and somewhere else. We have a lot of collaboration, academic collaborations with other institutes and universities. But you are right. I mean, in Cyprus, in the north especially, we have 28 universities. In the south, around 12. I think 100,000 foreign students in the north. But in that sense, I think there's only EMU University in Famagusta is doing some research and conflict resolution. But again, as I say, because it says officially owned university, there have been some sort of obstacles recently because of the current government is quite anti-reconciliation government, we can easily say. And there was another question. The second question I missed 1 second.
Is there by any chance a sort of peace prize which would inspire
Peace
people
prize,
who
yeah.
are doing the work that you're doing to carry on?
No, I mean, there's no peace prize. We're doing it for ourselves, for our families, for our kids, for the next generation and everything. And unfortunately, it becomes part of your identity after a while, and you cannot get rid of it. It stays there. So it becomes a national sport to talk about solving Cyprus problem, but we tend to fail to come to the last station in a sense, but mainly because of the political element and the way things have been handled. The Peace Prize was Mr. Guterres, when there was a Crans-Montana talk, he congratulated two leaders, Turkish Cypriot and Greek Cypriot. He said they should give you Oscars instead of Nobel Peace Prize for I mean, it was a slip of a tongue, but it was in a way that for the role that you're doing as if you're trying to solve the Cyprus problem, but running away from it last minute.
Well, I have to say that I think all three of you are more than worthy to receive a prize, and I'm so pleased that you're here to share this with us. I'm just wondering if Andre or Marios would like to weigh in on this question, and if not, I'm happy to turn to another. It's up to you guys.
If I may make a small comment, continuing what Mette said, many academics on an individual basis, they do their part. They're trying to do things. They produce some research, but universities as institutions are unlikely to work together because it's one of the basic problems, I mean, sub-problems of the Cyprus issue is the non-recognition across the divide. So
Got a bit of a glitch here, I'm afraid. Marios has frozen momentarily. I have every confidence he will unfreeze soon. In the meantime, Andre, would you like to address this question at all?
I think it was very well covered by Mete and Marios. My experience at the home hosting conferences and seminars by institution is that on an individual level, there is a lot of personal research by very, very distinguished academics, but on a more institutional level, I mean, yeah, I would have to agree with Marios and Mete.
Okay. Marios, you froze for a moment, but you're back. Would you like to add anything to what you said before?
No, I was just saying for this prize, I mean, there has to be an authority that is well respected across the divide to be giving this prize. So, and there is no such an authority on the island. Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. Well, I have another question from our audience from Bernard Roddy, who asks, I would like to hear more about the ways in which the work of Andre and or Marios has enabled diverse artistic expression. My own exposure to these kinds of organizations has been through encounters with individual artists who have received support from them and spoken with me about their activities.
I think Andre is in better position because it's a big component of the work of the home. Yeah.
Very
good, Andre.
Sure, I am very happy to kind of answer. I'm trying to read the second part that I see. So what we try to do at the Home for Cooperation is to create opportunities for artists to express themselves through different ways. Just a very brief example of what one such way is through the Buffer Fringe Festival that I've mentioned earlier. The Buffer Fringe is a performing arts festival, and it's every year is organized under a theme, which the artistic team puts forth and invites artists through an open call to respond to it. That theme has to do with things that are have to do with identity, with belonging. This year, the theme, because we've reached the 10th edition of the festival, was Turning Point, and how that is reflected in the artistic practice, also in the merging of different artistic practices. In the past, it has been displacement and how artists understand displacement of practices, of ideas, of people even. Another theme has been Pockets, which spoke to the invisible and visible kind of qualities and existence of different groups within the communities. So what we are trying to do, at least through the festival, as a very brief example, is that we are trying to create a platform and facilitate the encounters of these artists, whether they're local or international, or cross-country collaborations many times, and give them a platform and a safe space to engage with these issues. And then the festival, because we use arts as a transformative tool, we've seen that it allows space for engagement with topics that are often quite sensitive. It creates a space where artists can experiment their art form itself in this community, in this supported environment. And it also gives them access to local and international audiences through online or offline kind of engagement. So we've seen that activities around arts have a very kind of powerful impact. Our difficulty in our task is how to maximize the impact and make these engagements sustainable for kind of a longer engagement.
Thank you so much. Well, I have one more question that I'd like to pose from our audience, and it comes to us from Robert Dry, who is a career U.S. Foreign Service officer who has had a number of remarkable appointments and who is a great friend of the Gray School. And he says, wonderful presentations by exceptional citizen diplomats. Might any panelist drill down on the interactions with accredited foreign diplomats and UN officials? How can all parties work together in the best manner as in best practices? Anybody is willing to start off
I'm
with that
very
question?
happy
And
to start. Yeah, I'm very happy to start.
please,
and
Andre.
maybe Mete and Marius can kind of take it from there. Our experience, because we are, as I said, as we've mentioned, in the buffer zone, our neighbors across the street, Leader Palace Hotel, are UN soldiers, UN officials. So we kind of coexist in this buffer zone, but for different ways, for different reasons. So our interactions, at least with foreign diplomats, have been on many different levels. I'm not going to share too much about what the home does and like how that is linked with the question, but try to kind of give a general input. The foreign diplomatic community has been quite supportive, at least of some of the peace building activities that we do. Partly, let's say many of our grants and many of our projects are funded through grants from, let's say, the Norwegian embassy in Athens. I know for HDR, there is a lot of support from the Foreign Office of Germany. So the diplomatic community has been supportive of peace building activities. But there's sometimes a mismatch when it comes to the UN officials and the UN policies in what we are trying to do and what their role is in the space. And just very briefly, without wanting to be like setting out fires without being able to discuss them afterwards, our presence in the buffer zone as home, as civil society, is to break down the walls and to kind of engage with as many people as possible. The mandate of the UN is quite different. It's about controlling the space, maintaining the status quo. So oftentimes we get in each other's way in a way that we want to bring thousands of people to our festival and to the event, and then the United Nations asks us, yeah, but can you have a registration list so we can control the crowd? So you understand that in terms of how we approach things, it's a very interesting dynamic. I wouldn't say it's possible to have all parties work together. We do understand that a bottom-up and a top-down combination is needed, but I think oftentimes there is a mismatch or not always an alignment in how we view things or how we can kind of practically operate. And I don't know if Mr. Marius want to jump in.
Would anybody else like to follow up with that?
Well, I mean, just to add something, maybe I'm not actually answering the question, but I would like to share this with you. In the diplomatic arena, the happy end will be the resolution of the Cyprus problem. Now, the way things are structured, I mean, negotiations and the processes, maybe this will not happen in our lifetime. Maybe, I mean, we would like to see it happen, but at the same time, as Mete said, we have developed a lifestyle. It's a way of life. Our way of life is creating, but also created by the microcosm of people who are ready to engage into dialogue and cooperate. And we want to expand this microcosm, make it bigger, because we think that life will be better. I mean, without a solution, and when there is a solution, this microcosm, which will be wider, will be the breeding ground upon which any kind of solution will be sustainable.
We do interact with the diplomats a lot. Of course, depending on which diplomat, every country has their own positioning regarding the Cyprus problem. So in diplomacy, sometimes if it is a real official diplomacy, it's very hard to break the shell and to have this transformative effect on the diplomat. But still, I think we succeed to create question marks that the diplomats might take home and bring it to the table there with what they see, with what they hear, with what they read, all these things have an accumulating effect gradually, I believe, because we see changes of attitudes after a while. And also the personality is very important as well, which diplomat, in a sense, rather than which state's diplomat, but it's the characters are very important as well. Some are easy to be approached and have an interaction with. Some can be more contained and play for more secure, environment, stay in there in the shell and not interact that much. But currently we do have a lot of interested diplomats, and they do love to come to our sessions, not just our Home for Cooperation, historical dialogue, and everything. They do follow the events and things like that. But they have their limitations, as I say, because of the asymmetry existing. For example, you cannot take these diplomats that easily to North Cyprus and show them the reality there. In that sense, yeah, they cross, but with limitations in that sense. So interactions are not on the same level on both sides because of this recognition by implication thing. And yeah.
Well, I am so very pleased about this question and to hear your answers. At the Grace School, one of our big goals is to simply ask the question, how can we deepen the level of collaboration between state-sponsored and non-state actors and grassroots diplomats? And it's quite evident that this work is being done in Cyprus. And so I want to thank all three of you, Marios Epaminondas, Andrei Christofides, and Mete Hate. Thank you so much for your time, and we are so grateful for the work that you do.